Welcome to Chapter 4, Lesson 3, where we learn to create compound paths. Creating compound paths is essentially creating a hole in an object, or at least the illusion of a hole. So we're going to create a file called Simple Compound, or last name, first name, Simple Compound, and this is what it will look like in the end. So we need to go ahead and open our start file. So we're going to go to File, Open, and then go to our handout drive, of course, as always. Handout, Business Handouts, Shonifer, Computer Graphics, Illustrator, and Chapter 4. And we're going to open 4-7. Let's go ahead and hit Open. And the first thing we're going to do is we are going to cut the middle out of our illustration so that we can see that there's not actually a hole in our image. So I want you to take your selection tool, click on this middle circle, and then either do Control X or come to Edit and Cut. And you'll notice now that there's not an illusion of a hole being in the center of this image. So I want you to go ahead and undo that move by either going to Edit and Undo or hitting Control Z. So what we're going to do now is we are going to select the red background, and then we're going to drag and drop this ocean blue gradient onto our image. So we're going to click and drag, and then make sure that you're over the path when you release so that it changes our background to that ocean blue gradient. Now to create the illusion that we still have the circle in the middle of our image, but we want it to be that gradient now, we're going to create a compound path. The way we're going to do that is by clicking on the life raft and then holding Shift and clicking on our red circle. Then we're going to go to Object and then come down to the bottom where it says Compound Path, and then we're going to ask it to make a compound path. So you can do this or Control 8. And now it's going to add that gradient or create a hole within the middle of our image. So I want you to go ahead and save this object or this project as last name, comma, first name, Simple Compound. You'll turn this one in with your next project that we're going to work on, and that's going to be a compound path effects. So it's going to look like this when we are finished. So let's go ahead and open our start file by going to File, Open. You should be in the correct file now, and we're going to select 4-8. So we're going to do a couple different effects with this one using that compound path function. So the first thing I want you to do is go to Select and select All. Then what we're going to do is we'll notice that the light blue square is not selected because that is locked. So everything that is available to be selected is selected. And we're going to go to Object and then Compound Path and Make. So we're going to make a compound path out of all of these items. And you'll notice now how there's holes where, or seemingly holes where those yellow circles used to be. So now we're going to deselect everything by clicking on our artboard, go to our direct selection tool, and we're going to click on the path of our large blue circle so that we can see this center point in the middle. So come to your center point and click with the direct selection tool. And then we are going to double click on our scale tool, which is this guy right here, and we are going to scale this by 50%, and we're not going to make a copy, we're going to scale the initial item we're working on. So we're going to scale it, it should resemble this. Now what you're going to do, because you just have this circle selected, is we want to select everything but the circle. So what we can do is we can go to Select, and then select Inverse, which selects everything that wasn't selected before. Now we're going to transform these objects where we're going to be able to transform them all at once. So we're going to go to Object, Transform, and then Transform Each. So a dialog box is going to pop up to ask us how do we want to transform these items. So yours will say 100% right now under Scale. I want you to change your horizontal and your vertical to 225 and then hit OK. Once again, we're not making a copy, we're changing our original. And your image should look something similar to this. Now we're going to use our direct selection tool, deselect everything, and then come to the middle of our circle and make sure that we select the center. And then we're going to go to our scale tool again. So double click on our scale tool. And now we're actually going to change this to 120%. Hit OK, not copy, and change the function or the look of that circle. So we're going to go ahead and do this 2 more times by doing our transform again function. So going to object, transform, and transform again. Or for the 2nd time, we can hit Control D, which will transform that item a 2nd time in the same way that we had in the past. So now I want you to deselect everything using your selection tool, clicking on the artboard, and then saving this one as last name, comma, first name, compound path effects. And then you will turn in single compound and compound path effects into compound on Google Classroom. And then once you're done with that, you will move on to lesson 4 of chapter 4.